So good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone out to our first ReSET meeting in over a year. I'm joined from my office by Evan Burr, who's from our policy department.
Hey there.
And Evan can tell you we were just about to host a ReSET meeting about a year ago when COVID hit, and so we ended up canceling it. And we're glad to be back. Sorry it took so long. And on behalf of the Borough President, I just want to welcome you and thank you for being here. Today, our topic is all about offshore wind. This is a really exciting topic for New York right now, and also specifically for Brooklyn. We're pleased to be joined today by three people who have a hand in all that exciting stuff that's happening. So we have Adrian Downey, who's the principal engineer of the offshore wind program at NYSERDA. We have Julia Bovey, Director of External Affairs at Equinor. And we have Jamie Schellenberger-Bestman, Community Engagement Manager at EMBW North America. We're thrilled to have all of you here, and we're very hopeful about the future of offshore wind and how that industry will affect not just the state, but Brooklyn. And just a couple notes on the run of show. Each presenter will speak for roughly 10 to 15 minutes in that ballpark, and then we'll have a Q&A for roughly 5 or 10 minutes per speaker. And at the end, we'll address any outstanding questions. If something came up in a later presentation you want to ask an earlier presenter about, we can open up the floor then to anyone who would like to ask questions to the group as a whole. We'd also, we'll open it up to allow people to make brief announcements about something that they've been working on. It's been a year since we've all been together, so just want to give people a chance to give a quick, 1 or 2 minute overview of something they're excited about that's happening. If you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I see some people have gotten a head start. And we'll try to address them at the end of the speaker's presentation. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Adrian Downey from NYSERDA. Adrian.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I really appreciate the opportunity to join the ReSET Task Force as it reinvigorates and kicks off. This is an exciting topic to warm us all back up. I'm just wondering, should I share my screen, or is it beneficial if somebody else drives? I'm happy to do it.
You can go ahead and share your screen, and then if there's any technical issues, David has your presentation as a backup if needed.
Okay, well, hopefully I've got this figured out finally. Let me know if this is coming up.
I see your screen. So.
Yes?
Yes.
Success?
So far, so good.
Okay, good, great. Well, let's dive in. Again, just incredibly grateful to have this opportunity to connect, and thank you certainly to Brooklyn Borough President Adams for his continued leadership on environmental topics and on clean energy topics very specifically. We've really appreciated the collaboration of the office and of Jeff, together you and Evan over the past number of years as we've been working to bring offshore wind from the planning stages and really starting to bring it into sharp focus and fruition here with a number of awards now under our belt. So it's with that in mind that helping to set the stage here and offer a little bit of background to inform today's discussion and conversation, and really just starting at square one for those who aren't fully familiar, and those who've already had the 101, beg your indulgence as we move briefly through. But fundamentally, New York State is on an incredibly ambitious path under our 2019 Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or CLCPA, our Climate Act or Climate Law, many terms that go around, and all of which basically say, we are unequivocally on a path towards a clean energy economy, and a huge portion of how we get there as a state is through the commitment towards cleaning our grid. So our commitment as a state is for 100% clean, carbon-free electricity by 2040, which in infrastructure terms is really tomorrow. So it is just a tremendous amount of work that we need to do, focusing on our grid. But of course, NYSERDA's work focuses on many different aspects. And so here we're going to spend the balance of our discussion today talking about offshore wind. But please also bear in mind that NYSERDA, as the New York State Energy Research Ocean Development Authority is really tasked on many different fronts in our sustainability goals. Clean transportation, clean building technologies, and the like. But today, as broadcasted, is really focusing in on a tremendously exciting new pillar of our clean energy focus and our clean economy focus, which is the goal of 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind by 2035. And when we say that, it's important that we understand from a clean energy perspective what that means. It means enough power for approximately 6 million New York homes, and it also means approximately 30% of our electricity load by 2035. So it really is going to be a very meaningful pillar of our green grid, as it were. But it's also really important that we hone in on the anticipation of not only this as a powerhouse clean electron generating industry, but also a clean energy economy growth potential. So when we say 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind, we also say 10,000 jobs, and we say billions of dollars in infrastructure being brought to bear. So we really are using this as a multi-pronged sector to help drive important new and very exciting new growth, particularly job growth, and that is coming ever more sharply into focus as we think about our state's recovery to the COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, just again for the 101 to help ground us, why offshore wind? I mean, really, a picture shows tremendously what we're speaking about. When we talk about offshore wind, we are speaking about wind turbines being installed in the ocean. And so we see an example of the latest, most avant-garde equipment to the furthest right in this graphic. And you can see here just the magnitude of the turbines, these gentle giants that we are proposing to install in the ocean. The GE Haliade X is indicated here as an example. You may have seen a spread on this technology in the New York Times over the past number of months. And it really showcases just, the size of this technology when we look to onshore turbines. And if you've seen them in other parts of the state, those turbines tend to be around 2 to 3 megawatts on an onshore basis. An offshore wind turbine is approximately 12 plus megawatts now in what we're seeing from the industry. So it really is an order of magnitude in terms of the size of the equipment. And that offers us, really unique proposal with regards to clean, renewable power produced very proximally to where demand is highest. And that in New York State is either New York City directly or Long Island. That's where our highest concentration of population, certainly greatest amount of density, and largest electrical loads are concentrated. So this offers us, the opportunity to really crack what has been an incredibly tough nut for the state, which is helping to decarbonize what is still a predominantly fossil fuel-based fleet in our downstate grid. And so, again, we're focused on bringing this resource to bear to service our climate goals, to reduce, harmful greenhouse gas emissions, but also again to emphasize, the clean energy economy potential associated with the investments. And as we look to this slide, or particularly to the graphic, I just want to highlight, again, the size of the componentry, which will be important for us to recognize as we talk a little bit further about, the intersections with port infrastructure. A turbine of this magnitude has, a tower that could be 450 feet in length, a blade that's in excess of 300 feet. These are enormous components. And so as we think about installation and logistics, which is a big part of this industry, we also think about the component manufacturing and the activities that really beget a close relationship with ports in quayside operations. And so again, I just want to highlight again the size of the components and where that inevitably leads us as we think about developing this industry. So just to help ground us, when we say in the ocean, where do we mean? We mean the areas that are indicated in blue currently. Those are areas that are active leases that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, as a department within the units at the Federal Department of Interior, they have auctioned the developmental rights to those parcels off to the industry, where private developers have secured rights for development. Very eagerly, we're also hoping to see these areas that we note in green being converted into future lease areas in order to help broaden the field and bring additional developmental capacity into the sphere. But it really is these areas that are offshore in federal waters. We see here this red line indicates the border between state and federal waters, 3 nautical mile line. And so these areas are developed offshore, and they bring their project to bear and to become a New York project by having an agreement, an offtake agreement with the state of New York, as well as with their direct connection into New York State's grid. So really, we are a unique industry that spans both federal jurisdictions and federal permitting processes, but also brings the projects home to bear on a New York basis by incorporating their energy directly into our grid. We're going to be hearing, of course, from Equinor later on today about their project holdings, and from ENBW with Jamie a little bit later, again, speaking to our aspirations in growing and diversifying the market potential for this. But really, when we put offshore wind and 9,000 megawatts into focus, I'd like to just highlight the fact that we are joined up and down the coastlines by states that have recognized similar tremendous potential with this resource. And so states from Maine all the way through the Carolinas are starting to advance active offshore wind programs, and New York is steadfastly leading the way. Our goal of 9,000 megawatts puts us squarely on the map, both in the region, nationally, and also internationally. And the United States as a whole, with all of the aggregated interest and targets that are growing up and down the coastline, is now pushing 30 gigawatts. That is a globally significant demand for this industry and this power. And so as this traditionally to date very global industry and very global supply chain is looking at New York, they're seeing how geographically central we are, but also how significant our goals and aspirations are. And speaking of our goals and aspirations, we're putting that to work. We have been really excited to undertake our second solicitation. So NYSERDA is the state authority that is tasked with helping to lead, advance, and develop this industry on behalf of New York State. We undertook our second procurement activity where we're buying large-scale projects effectively on behalf of New Yorkers. And we went into the market last year with that second offering, culminating in this past January's announcements of an additional 2 projects of close to 2,500 megawatts. And again, we're going to be hearing more about this momentarily from Julia Bove with Equinor, but really wanted to shine a light on the fact that this is a huge step for the state, as part of our major commitments towards pivoting our economy forward in a post-COVID recovery stance, but recognizing the incredible potential in our offshore renewable energies and onshore renewable energy portfolios, where we likewise awarded a tremendous package of projects to the tune of around 2,200 megawatts. Together, these are by far and away the most aggressive and comprehensive steps of any state in the United States towards renewable energy. And we're really proud to be, again, working to champion New York State's interests in making this really powerful signal and delivering, an incredible package of economic benefits via in-state spending and job creation, which is pivotal to these goals. So as we look to our projects, and again, I'll defer the details to Julia in her presentation, but just want to shine a light. These 2 additional projects that we have awarded are now in complement to the projects that NYSERDA awarded in our 2018 solicitation, Empire Wind 1, which we see in the light hatching, and Sunrise Wind 1, which is a joint venture of developers Ørsted and Eversource, who also are working on the South Fork Wind Farm. But now the 2 new projects, Empire Wind 2 and Beacon Wind, bring New York's total portfolio to 5 active projects, which is by far and away, pardon the pun, that we're blowing it out of the water in terms of the amount of active development, by far the most considerable portfolio of active projects in development currently in the nation. And so really it shines a light on how aggressive aggressively we are moving forward with this new industry. And it starts to show that the certitude and the commitments that the state are making is also starting to beget a tremendous amount of activity. You can see on this map, in addition to the lease areas and the parcels, which is where the wind farms will be installed, we're starting to see what are the connectivity points, where will this power be coming? And so we see power from Empire Wind 1 anticipated to come here into the Gowanus substation in the borough of Brooklyn. We're seeing Empire Wind 2 with connectivity to Barrett, Sunrise to Holbrook, South Fork to East Hampton, and Beacon ultimately through the Long Island Sound to Astoria. We're also seeing tremendous growth in our port ambitions, and those are the light yellow dots that we're seeing here. And so we have not only 5 projects, but we have 5 ports. And speaking of ports, a huge portion of the excitement in this past January's awards speaks to the critical investments to unlock port potential. Again, the size of these components really begets a quayside interest, and we need to be very mindful of that as we seek to unlock the economic development potential for the state. We've put a very sharp focus on integrating our clean energy goals and our port infrastructure goals, again, to unlock that potential through this past solicitation. And what really came to bear was an incredible package of public and private investments. The state has ultimately been able to secure for every $1 of state funding, approximately $3 of private investment, to bring to a total of more than $600 million to bear in unlocking these ports. And so we're going to see the nation's very first offshore wind tower transition piece manufacturing coming to the capital region at the Port of Albany. That is a tower manufacturing partnership with Marmon and Welcome and the Albany Port District Commission, but also, very exciting and very specific here for the Borough of Brooklyn, really game-changing upgrades to revitalize the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal as a staging facility and hub of Equinor's U.S. operations and maintenance activities. And so really, again, unlocking the potential of these ports and of these projects will together bring more than 5,200 direct jobs just through these latter 2 projects, a combined activity of almost $9 billion of in-state spending and activities, tremendous package of workforce development and funding being made available to support an inclusive clean energy economy, notably with just access funding commitments, and also, a huge amount of money being spent on regional monitoring of key environmental topics and commercial fishing topics. Just to round us out, a huge preoccupation of our program to date has been, close interactions with labor, and the continued support of prevailing wage requirements and project labor agreements for these projects, and that extends both to the generation projects as to the port infrastructure activities, as well as significant prioritization of activities and opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, as well as service disabled veteran-owned businesses, or SDVOBs. These continue to be very important pillars as we advance this new suite of economic development opportunities. So with that, and just in sum, again, we now have 5 offshore wind projects in active development between our 2018 awards, our 2020 awards, and then likewise, the Long Island Power Authority's projects. 5 ports coming to bear, which is a tremendous amount of activity that we're really excited to bring and to start seeing in activation over the coming years. And again, what this really brings is just a laser focus on the opportunity to create what will be essentially, exceptional, well-paying jobs for New Yorkers. The first solicitation brought to bear 1,600 jobs. The second will bring an additional 5,200 jobs. And what we are seeing, like any form of critical infrastructure, right, is that we are initiating a ramp up of activities that will, like any infrastructure project, culminate with a peak of construction and activities relating to installation. But ultimately, we're eager to build, in addition, a serious focus on long-term operations and maintenance. And these are the long-term jobs that are associated with 25 years of operations of this equipment after it is installed. And so what we are doing is we are creating a peak, we are sustaining maintaining that peak through back-to-back solicitations, and we are trying to grow and build, the baseline of really exceptional operations and maintenance jobs. And so cultivating opportunities and job creation at each of those intervals, whether it's construction, manufacturing, project development, or O&M. Again, this is how we speak about the 10,000 jobs that this industry's conception is predicated upon. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Hopefully that helps to set the stage and to hear from our panelists here afterwards, but glad to answer any questions. And likewise, my contact information, we're here and available on behalf of the state of New York, for any of your follow-up and interest. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrienne. I don't know if you're still sharing your screen or if we can.
I will try to.
But anyway, while we're waiting for questions to come in, go ahead and if people have questions, feel free to type them into the chat function, please. You can do the Q&A too, but the chat's just kind of easier. If I get distracted by two different things, my ADD kicks in, so I won't know where to look. So, but if you go ahead and put questions in the chat, I'll just do a couple housekeeping things while we're waiting for those. First of all, someone asked if we would share the list of both panelists and attendees. What I would say is, if you're interested in being identified, we've already identified our panelists, put your contact information, your name and contact information in the chat for anyone to see. I put mine in already. I think Evan just put his in. So go ahead and put yours in. And then the other thing is that just on the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, we might hear more about it going forward, but we hope to bring you updates on that as they become more timely, right? This is a new development, a newish development. So we really going to be keeping an eye on that, and hopefully we'll bring you in future presentations. And it looks like we have somebody who has their hand up. Let me just see. Eric Darashaw, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you can ask your question. Go ahead, Eric. I think you're still muted. No, not hearing from Eric. How about Toba Petoskey?
Mute. Can you hear me?
Is this Toba?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So one thing that I've been very, very focused on for a while now is kinetic underwater turbines. And I'm just wondering if anybody can address that. I know that there's a company, Verdant, who is testing 3, I believe, underwater turbines off of Roosevelt Island. And I just feel that we have a great opportunity here with the constant current that we have, as an addition to wind turbines, that tidal and water turbines would be an amazing addition to a long-term plan. Can anybody of the panelists address that at all?
Yeah, we can. I don't know. Maybe we can, once everyone else is presented, they could address that at the end. If anyone has, Adrienne, do you have any knowledge of that off the top of your head, or?
Just very briefly, certainly NYSERDA has been involved in that as a pilot project, and continue to be very interested in really any and all clean energy resources. As you can imagine, our goals are extremely ambitious as a state to clean our grid, and so we are very eager to leave no stone unturned as we explore different opportunities and potential. I would just disassociate or disambiguate from what we're describing here today as offshore wind technologies and industry as a mature and large scale renewable energy industry that we are eager to bring to bear. The Verdant project is certainly very intriguing and provides us with much food for thought, but still is anticipated to be a pilot project for the moment, just given the constraints of the resource relative to the size and magnitude of what we can bring to bear with other technologies. But certainly not dismissing it as a very exciting and interesting topic that is still warranting of ongoing investigation and consideration.
Maybe something for a future reset to talk about. If people are interested in learning more about that, that's what we want to bring to people.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to mute you again, Tova just, oh, you already muted. Okay. Eric, can,
Yes, I'm here.
okay, do you have a question for Adrian?
Yes. Yes, I do have a question. And I wanted to ask about, have you considered the intermittency of wind turbines and solar? And have you considered, for instance, I'm working with the development of green hydrogen fuel cells to balance out the intermittency of wind and solar. Have you considered that as part of the project?
So that's a great question. Indeed, renewable energy technologies are subject to intermittency. That is part and parcel of their conception, is that they operate when the wind is blowing and when the sun is shining. But they are part and parcel of a comprehensive grid, which is predicated upon really mixing a diversity of resources, times, technologies, and solutions. So a lot of this comes into bear with again, the resource mix, bringing in a complementary mix of different resources that can service our needs at different times of the day and to work in complementary fashion, but also with a tremendous amount of integration with hydro resources, integration with battery storage. The same act that we're focusing on for offshore wind, has goals for solar, has goals for onshore capacity, and has goals for battery storage. These are all part and parcel of a very sophisticated and ongoing discussion. So it's a great question. Certainly there is, ongoing inquiry and research and interest in evolving, clean solutions such as hydrogen. But they're all part and parcel. So I wouldn't say, I know we're focusing on offshore wind here today, and it can seem like it's an exclusion of other resources. Quite the contrary. We're really looking at this as a comprehensive problem, and opportunities and package and suite of opportunities to help make sure that they all work together in a complementary fashion, as well as the grid's ability to transmit and be responsive to that diversity of resource and availability. But certainly one thing to specifically plug about offshore wind is that the size of the resources and the relative to some of its onshore brethren, and we love all of our children equally at NYSERDA, it is a very powerful and very consistent resource that we're eager to bring to bear.
So a couple questions related. One was how many jobs are projected for the SBMT, and then also relatedly, someone asked, they heard about a hiring center, they wanted more information on that, and what is the strategy for local hiring in Brooklyn and New York City? Yeah, basically those, if you have numbers on those. I know you're not with the SBMT, but
yeah, I imagine, Julie, am I wrong if I say that those are part and parcel of your presentation that's coming up? So maybe I just say stay tuned.
Great. And then the last question I see in the chat is a question about environmental impact of these projects. Yeah, impact the development of these projects.
Sure. No, I mean, we've been working on environmental topics relating to offshore wind for many, many years now. We first, the announcements and the highlight reel that we've just shared today are, the culmination and latest in what has now been a more than 6-year saga of deep research and investigation. We need to be very eyes wide open here in the state of New York as to the fact that infrastructure has impacts as much as it brings benefits, and we are working very closely with environmental stakeholders as a core precept of our approach to advancing this resource. Our mantra in the state is the cost-effective and responsible development of offshore wind. And really, it's that intersection of, we want to advance this resource because we understand that that the business as usual and fossil fuel dominated fleet is not beneficial to marine ecosystems. We need an alternative, but how do we advance that alternative in a way that, again, is eyes wide open to the potential impacts? There are sensitive marine ecologies, important habitat, acoustic considerations, migration patterns, it goes on and on and on. And we have been very focused, laser focused, I would say, in understanding those topics by bringing together what we call technical working groups, or TWIGs. which are really bringing the experts to the table at a round table as peers and equals within the discussion to help the state advance this in a way that, again, is sensitive to the expertise that is out there. We need bird experts telling us about where, which species, how, migratory patterns, and then how is the industry working in collaboration with those experts to understand and design projects from the get-go in a way that is conducive to maximizing the opportunity of the resource and minimizing conflicts. And so NYSERDA has taken that very, very seriously. Again, from the program's inception, we have convened these technical working groups, which are a meeting of experts and industry and the state to be working through these topics very tangibly, sleeves fully rolled up, and to advance, really important leadership on environmental topics that speak to mitigation plans. And those are part and parcel of our contracts as well, where again, through design, we understand what is being built, where is it being built, how is it being built, when is it being built? And then we have that intersection with all of the taxa that call the bite home. And there are many and diverse needs, and the technical working groups have been pivotal in helping us to understand and articulate and mitigate to the maximum extent possible those impacts, again realizing that the business as usual and status quo is also an unacceptable solution for the marine environment.
There were just a couple more questions. One a follow up to that, and then one more, and then we'll move on to our next presenter because I want to be mindful of people's time. One was, have you spoken to the fishing industries, the airline traffic? Are those impacted? Are those included in those working groups?
Indeed, there's actually a dedicated working group. Well, we have several working groups to this effect. The environmental one that I just described, we have an equivalent fishing technical working group. And so we work with commercial fisheries to understand, conduct extensive research together, and to showcase what the needs are of this incumbent and important industry, culturally as well as economically significant. How do we work together to understand and again maximize the potential of the industry and while minimizing conflicts. And so that is a really important discussion that we also in similar fashion to the environmental example that I just provided, where we bring parties to the table and work very arms fully sleeves rolled up on all of these topics, recognizing that there are important nuances to the collaboration.
And then someone's asking about how the power from the windmills gets to households. Does pipeline have to be built through neighborhoods, that sort of thing?
So projects they bring their power to shore through cables. So there are electrical cables in the same way that there are electrical cables underneath your house right now that bring power to your home. These projects are built in the ocean. They bring their power to shore via a significant cable that again, similar to all of the transmission electrical infrastructure that underpins our grid for the moment. So it's an expansion of the grid that we have today, in effect, and to augment that capacity with renewable energy resources. So really, the projects come ashore, they connect to a substation, and then feed into the grid, which if you look outside your window, you can probably see a few cables right now. Likewise, same sort of process for internet cables and the like, where we're serviced by 21st century infrastructure underneath our feet at all times of the day, and this would be in complement to that work.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to slip in one last one. Someone said in the chat, are there any viable small and mid-sized wind applications for urban sites?
So that's a different tier of activity. We're talking about a different breed of renewable energy generation. Certainly NYSERDA does a lot of work. Again, I said at the outset, we're busy on many different aspects of our clean energy goals. We work on, building topics, on transportation topics. We also work on distributed topics, right? And that's more in-city generation potentially, rooftop and so forth. And those are all really important pieces of our complete puzzle when we think about, you know, a clean and green economy for New York State. But when we talk about offshore wind, you know, we're talking about really a very large scale application. So in order to, you know, in order to power, you know, the 9.5, you know, million homes in New York City, and, you know, 23 million plus in the broader tri-state area, you know, it's a lot of power. It's a lot of needs. And so we need, in addition to those distributed resources that do bring, you know, tremendous benefit and opportunity, and particularly educational opportunity, which is very valuable as we approach our goals. You know, we also need just a lot of power. And so that's where offshore wind really comes in complement to help deliver that, you know, large scale solution that otherwise is very difficult to bring into the extremely built up areas of New York City and Long Island.
Adrian, thank you so much for presenting and answering questions. I really appreciate having you. But so in addition to NYSERDA, we also wanted to hear from a couple of the companies who are going to be working locally in the New York area. So you have a chance to hear what they're up to and ask them questions about their projects. And so first up, we're going to have Julia Bovey from, she's the Director of External Affairs at Equinor. Julia.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for taking time from your day to engage with us on this. My name's Julia Bovey. I live in Brooklyn, and I'm really excited about offshore wind, and I'm really excited that Brooklyn is going to be home base to what will be one of the first world-class offshore wind ports in America. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Equinor, my company, and a little bit about our plans here. And it sounds like there may be some appetite for future engagement specifically on South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, and want to make sure that you know, I'm responsive to that as well. Let me make sure I can advance my slides. Okay, so who is Equinor? We are an international energy company that started in Norway when the Norwegian people realized in the early 70s they might have oil and gas off their shores, but no private company was crazy enough to go work in the roughest waters in the world in the North Sea to figure it out. So they got together and did it themselves. And that company evolved into a publicly traded company, and which about 10 years ago, you know, taking its cue from the Norwegian people, which still own 3/4 of the shares of the company, realized that it was time to lead on climate change. Norwegians were ahead of a lot of the world in realizing this is a crisis, and we have to change our energy system really quickly in order to avoid the worst effects of it. So it's a great place to work. Working in a company that has the values open, courageous, collaborative, and caring, I gotta say, is pretty great. And when we have questions about should we do this or that, coming back to those values is sort of a great way to center ourselves. And I'm excited to bring that here to Brooklyn. So Equinor is developing offshore wind all around the world, but the US East Coast has quickly become our core business. We were really lucky to win a project back in 2019, but being awarded these last two projects in the award that Adrian just discussed really puts us in another league for US development, and we're certainly excited about that. So as I said, a little bit of history. Equinor bought this lease area in this map back in the last days of 2016 and set about developing our first project, which is Empire Wind 1. And that is located in, the technical term is the pointy end of the pizza slice of our lease off of Long Island. The plan for the power from Empire Wind 1 is that it'll come up in the harbor and interconnect to the grid in Sunset Park at the very northern end of the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. So I know there is a question about, do you have to dig up streets and roads? Sometimes certainly developers have to do that. We're really lucky that we have access to great substations that are right on the waterfront. And that helps avoid those kind of conflicts. So we're thrilled to win this 800 megawatt project. back in 2019. We've been working hard to develop that. One thing that we've known from the very start is that currently there's no ports in New York where we can build an offshore wind project. The components are so large and so heavy, and the marine operations are so complex that there really had to be a port built if this work was going to be done in New York. And New York State's always recognized that, but clearly the state wanted to figure out the way to distribute port funding that was going to make sure that it went to ports that were going to get used. And really, they did quite a job leveraging private money from the public money that they gave out. So when we won this project, we weren't yet sure where we were going to be able to build it, but we had our hopes and certainly our plans set on South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. Another part of what I think made Empire Wind special from the very beginning is we pushed ourselves to ask the question, what components currently in the offshore wind supply chain can be made in New York rather than in Europe where they're currently made now? And we started with foundations. This is the piece that anchors the wind turbine to the seabed. And one design is called a gravity-based structure. It's basically an upside down patio umbrella that's like 30 stories high. And it's made of rebar and cement and concrete, which is something that New York is expert in. So this is an exciting first step toward supply chain in New York. So we had this great news in January that we won these 2 additional projects, Empire Wind 2 and Beacon Wind. And it's always just incredible and exciting to win 2,500 megawatts of power. That's like 3 or 4 old-fashioned huge power plants. But with the win, each of these projects had to propose a port with the offshore wind project that needed funding from the state or matching funding or from the state. So with this win came not only the projects, but also the port resources. So a little bit more specifically, and I know Adrian mentioned the projects, Empire Wind 2, 1,260 megawatts. It's going to be interconnected into Nassau County. And then Beacon Wind, 1,230. And the power from there will go through the Long Island Sound and interconnect in Western Queens and an area in Queens that used to have 5 old style power plants that were powering Manhattan. So there's really good infrastructure to repurpose there for renewable energy. So I mentioned the ports, and this to me is one of the most exciting things about the entire endeavor is that in Europe, when developers build offshore wind, which Equinor has been doing for more than 10 years and other companies as well, they just rent space in a port, bring in the components, put them together, and install them in the sea. We have to build a port before we can do any of that. And we've found terrific partners in Brooklyn. The partnership that currently leases South Brooklyn Marine Terminal from NYC EDC has been wonderful. But really the best part of this experience for me is when we looked all over, no stone unturned in New York State for a port. What we found in Sunset Park was a community that's fought to keep this port space open for industry. A community that sees walk to work industrial jobs as something that they want to hang on to. And in a city where everyone wants a glass condo on the waterfront, it's remarkable that this space exists. And obviously it's no accident. A lot of people have worked really hard to make sure that this space is there. And we are honored that we can be the first in this industry that will use this port. It's not just for us. We'll use it for our first 3 projects at least, but it's designed to be for the entire industry. In addition to this side of South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, where we'll do the assembly of the wind farm, we also plan to do our long-term 25-year plus operations and maintenance of the projects from SBMT. So Adrian mentioned O&M. That's what we call operations and maintenance. So this is where the crews that maintain the wind farms will deploy from. we have a commitment to a formal commitment with NYC EDC that the technicians who operate the projects will be hired from the local community. We're working with New York City's Workforce One, career development. They have remarkable resources that will really help us be able to go into the community and do that kind of early workforce development outreach that's needed anytime a new industry is started, but also to make sure that we really deliver on the principles of the just transition, that the communities that have borne the brunt of the old energy system and the downsides of that, have a chance to reap the benefits of this new system. Additionally, part of the new award includes the a tower factory at Port of Albany, which Adrienne also mentioned. So this is yet another opportunity to make a major offshore wind component in New York. So these tower sections will be shipped down the Hudson and out to the lease area, and that is in the works. But it's happening faster than a lot of people thought. Up in Massachusetts and elsewhere, their first projects will all be built with components from Europe, and that's how I think most people thought that the industry would develop. But here in New York, incentives have been put in place to bring this manufacturing and industrial jobs here, and it's really materialized. So a little more about workforce development. There's money coming to the table, which is fantastic. The state has some grants out. I know there's some Brooklyn organizations that are applying for them. Equinor plans to be a big part of that. It's key to our success to deliver on our local hiring commitments for sure. The labor unions have been at the table from the very beginning, and they're one constituency we have to thank for having this huge offshore wind goal in New York. And they do a lot of, primarily train their own workers, and we need to make sure we fit into their training and apprenticeship programs at the same time that we're also focused on the just transition, of course. Community engagement. That's certainly not difficult in Brooklyn. It's wonderful how many community leaders are eager to roll up their sleeves and work with us on the port and interconnecting the power. So that's something that's more than a full-time job for me, and there'll be more folks coming on to help me with that. And part of our commitments to EDC also is to have a community engagement center within a block or two of South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. So people will have a place to come, talk to us, apply for jobs, information sessions, things like that. It's hard when you're building a project in the middle of the sea to be able to have that connection. So having a physical place will certainly help. I'm going to have to figure out a new way to make this slide because we keep creating initiatives and partnerships, and having a big long list isn't that useful on a slide. But with EDC, they've been great at really pushing us to make solid commitments that are measurable and that we'll deliver on. One of them that I think would be great for this group to think about and help us think about is port electrification. It's something that Los Angeles has worked on in the last decade, certainly Norway. They're electrifying their ferries. The US East Coast is way behind. I think we have a great chance to use some of the technological breakthroughs that are happening elsewhere, but it also, it costs money, but it's a crucial environmental justice move, right? You can't say we're gonna build offshore wind, but we're gonna contribute to pollution in Sunset Park. So we're hoping that there will be many hands on deck, no pun intended, in Brooklyn to work on port electrification with us. There's some great universities in New York that are already at the table, and you got to hand it to Kingsborough. They already have some really hands-on training programs for marine expertise, and so we hope to work with them and with a lot of others on this list. Waterfront Alliance, another great Brooklyn stakeholder, very engaged in both old and new uses of the waterfront. So this list goes on. And I know someone mentioned in the Q&A fisheries outreach. It's crucially important. And we see with our experience so far is that recreational fishermen, and I'm thinking, about Sheepshead Bay, charter boats, the experience has been that recreational fishing in wind farms is pretty good, and recreational fishermen and tour captains are excited about it. But commercial fishermen need more reassurance that they're going to be able to continue to fish and earn their living safely in the offshore wind farms. And we believe very strongly that they will, and that's played out and proven itself for us in Europe. But we know that we have to put in a lot of time to make sure that they have the assurances that they need. So we have full-time people working on that, visiting ports, walking the docks, answering questions, and we take feedback and put it into our plans when it makes sense. So this is me. Really look forward. I hope this is just the beginning of the conversation, and we're looking forward to becoming really a Brooklyn project and a Brooklyn company. So thanks, Jeff, for inviting me, and look forward to working together more.
Thank you so much, Julia. There was a question in the Q&A about opportunities for professional services, I think it was. I think you covered some of that. I've asked the person if they want anything more specific than that.
Something I will add is, so NYSERDA has an offshore wind supplier database, and one of our commitments is to use that database whenever we're going to market looking for professional services or any kind of services. And NYSERDA has a way to sign up for it on their website. So I really recommend that companies do that and that they put a lot of keywords in. I was looking for a very specific consultant recently, and I found that it was hard to tell what kind was which. So, but do get on the NYSERDA database. And we also are engaged with groups in Brooklyn that are working specifically on minority and women-owned business enterprises. We have a commitment that at least 30% of the suppliers in Brooklyn will be MWBEs.
Great, thank you. And I'm getting a question of, and thank you for mentioning the New York incentives to have things actually manufactured here, like that puts together here. But someone's asking, like, what's still on your wish list? Like, what can't be gotten here that you'd love to be able to get here?
Well, I mean, for the long term, it would be great to be able to have actual wind turbines made in New York. For onshore wind, it was 10, 15 years before the market was big enough for those factories to relocate from Europe. But New York, by putting this 9,000 megawatt goal out there, it's hard to ask for anything better to actually send that signal to companies like ours, but also our suppliers. Yeah, come, move, set up shop in New York. That's what happened with the 2 tower companies that we're partnering with for Port of Albany. But the other parts of the wish list are much more about making sure that when we hire our 5 prime contractors for our 5 packages, and then they go into the market for the subs and the subs of the subs, that we have as many New York companies at the table as possible. And I know the story of Sunset Park, of the concrete for the median coming from New Jersey. And people are still mad about it, and it's totally understandable, but those things happen if you're not careful. So we're gonna be careful.
Great. And someone's asking about the lifespan of the turbine components, and when they're decommissioned, are they refurbishable, recyclable?
Yes, there's some really innovative work going on with recycling them. They're made of, the blades are made of carbon fiber, which recently it was sort of unclear how that could be recycled and repurposed, but there are more and more ways to do that, which is great. So our lease for the ocean bottom, if you will, goes out 25 years. And who knows what the world will be like at that time, but we certainly like to think we would be able to re-up and keep the turbine spinning. What we've seen in onshore wind is that at a certain point, even if a project is still spinning and still creating the power that it was intended to, technology improves so quickly that in 25 years, we may find that it's better and cheaper to replace them with whatever is the 25-year from now version of offshore wind. But we do have to commit absolutely in our permitting to decommission it responsibly.
And someone's asking about local hiring, like what's your plan for local hiring again?
Yep.
I kind of posed it to Adrian, but since you're going to be
Yep.
the one.
Sure. So sort of two very, very general buckets on local hiring, right? There's the construction jobs, which as we all know in New York, are union jobs. So it's working with the unions now on their local apprenticeship programs, their way to ensure that we meet our goals on having folks from the community actually working in the port. But then the long-term permanent jobs, the ones that we will hire, we will work through we'll work with Workforce One, who, they tell us they can target down to the zip code. And the key is to start doing that early. And so the kids we're going to hire to operate our wind farms are probably in high school now. And what do we need to do today that they know this is an option for them, that the ones who would have the will to want to be out in the sea for their job know that they need to stick with math and where to come to learn more money to figure out how to get on this career path and earn more, that will really be family supporting jobs as their careers grow. So right now there are a few community groups that are sort of been ahead of the curve in figuring out how to do that, and we're here to support those efforts. We'd love to run out and say, okay, what we're going to do, we want to give swimming lessons to everyone in Sunset Park. But I don't know if that's the most appropriate thing for us to do right now. So I feel like our role is to work really closely with, for instance, the groups that are on the Sunset Park Task Force, who really live in that community and deeply understand what the best next moves are.
Yeah. And then I think you already answered some of the MWBE questions you mentioned. Some you have a 30%. Okay, so someone followed up with that. And then to the extent that the timeline for the development, construction, use of SBMT.
Sure. So a very, very, very ambitious goal would be for us to be able to permit the reconstruction of the port in the next 1 year to 18 months. It's an incredibly complex permitting process. It's federal, state, and local permits. It's dredging. It's reconfiguring. It's a big, big lift, and we can use all the help we can get on that. If we can do that, we can start building this port, which is $200 million investment in Brooklyn in a year or 18 months from now. And we can't do it till we get the permits. And once that construction starts, that should lead right into when we'll be constructing the substation, and then to when we're actually constructing the wind turbines in the port. So that's when things will really get moving on that side. For the operations and maintenance staff, probably 2025 is when we'll start that hiring.
Great. And someone's asking for more information on the manufacturing plan for the Port of Albany. Are you exploring manufacturing in NYC? We are not quite ready to get into the details on that, but yeah, it's a crowded waterfront in New York, and all of us want trucks off the road and more stuff brought to us on the water. We believe strongly there's a way to do that and have this industry in New York Harbor. And I'll be excited to talk about that sometime soon. Okay, maybe we'll bring everyone back for a follow-up meeting as we get more on SBMT and on everything. And so thank you so much. Thanks, Julia, for speaking with us today and presenting and answering questions. And that will bring us to our last but not least presenter, and I want to warn you a little bit, Jamie. The pun game of the first two presenters has been pretty good. Apparently the offshore wind industry is it's got a good pun game going. But finally, I want to introduce Jamie Schellenberger-Bessman, Community Engagement Manager at EnBW North America. The floor is yours, Jamie.
Thanks so much. Let me pull up my presentation. Can everyone see that?
Sorry, yes, I can see it. Yeah,
Sure can, Jimmy.
yeah, sorry, I muted myself.
Excellent. Thanks so much. My name is Jamie Bessman. I am the Community Engagement Manager at EnBW North America. It's so nice to be here with everyone today. Thank you to Brooklyn Borough President as well as the ReSET team for inviting us to participate. I also just wanted to say I think it's a great panel for Women's History Month. We have 3 women talking about their respective offshore wind companies. So, I think we're already seeing a change in the energy industry here, and that's really great to see, and it's great to be part of it. So as Adrian mentioned, EnBW North America, we are more of an aspirational company at the moment for the New York market. However, we do have global expertise in offshore wind development. We are a German company abroad, and we're now here in North America and very much eager to enter the New York market. So today I'm just going to give you some background on the company. We do hope to become more of a familiar household name in this market, and so I'm sure you'll hear more about us, and hopefully this will help you understand what we're about, and eventually when we are able to enter and bid into a New York solicitation, everyone will know who we are. So I'll go ahead and get started here. Like I said, we are a German company. We're actually the largest integrated utility in Germany, so we do have different types of generation, although we are very dedicated to transitioning over to renewable energies. We're at about 30% right now, and we actually have a 2035 target to be net zero. So, there's a lot going on in Germany, and we're bringing that over here into the United States. We produce solar energy, onshore, offshore wind. We actually did build Germany's first commercial offshore wind project, and we have several others that are operating now and some that are also in the works. EnBW is also focused on innovation around the world. So we, in Europe, we actually own and operate the largest EV fast charging network, which is pretty exceptional. You'll actually see on the picture there on the left that, it looks like a gas station, but that's actually an EV charging station that you can find at different places in Europe for folks to charge their electric vehicles. So we're very much part of the community in Germany and in Central Europe, and we're hoping to do that as well here in North America. We also contribute to floating technology research. You'll see on this other image that I've included here, that's a prototype that we call Nessie, after the Loch Ness Monster. It's an interesting two-headed floating turbine, but this isn't necessarily something we would bring to the US market, but we are looking at different floating technologies, and I'll actually share a little bit more about a project that we're working on the west coast of North America that's floating technology in just a little bit. Of course, we're also looking at other tangential innovations that relate to offshore wind, such as battery technology. We're in early talks about different hydrogen projects, although that's not necessarily coming online, but we're exploring different opportunities. Innovation is at the core of what we do. You'll see here a picture of our offshore wind projects that are online and in development in Germany. Right here, we have projects both in the North Sea as well as the Baltic Sea. We own, operate, and develop all of our projects, and that's what we're looking to do here in North America. And we're also a global player, so not just Germany, but we have operations around the world. We are in Taiwan, we're in Sweden, France. We actually had some exciting news just last month where we won 2 lease auctions in the UK for a 3 gigawatt pipeline of offshore energy into the UK market. So we're very excited about that. And then of course, we're here in North America. We're looking at opportunities on both the East and the West coasts. And turning now to North America specifically, the way that we're approaching our projects here is with a community first mindset. We understand that offshore wind really takes a whole community, local leaders, local stakeholders to build a project. We can't just come in and build it. So we want to hear from folks, and that's kind of in the spirit of what I'm here doing today, is letting you know who we are. And of course, I want to answer your questions, and I want to continue the conversation. Of course, we're also looking to support state renewable energy goals. We want to provide clean and reliable power at a decent cost for customers and for local residents. And you know, we're really excited to hear from you. So at the end of the presentation and even afterwards, you're welcome to take my email address and send questions if you have any. We do have 2 offices in North America. We're in Jersey City and we're also in Boston. We are, however, very focused on the New York Bight market. So, you know, we're really eager to get that next solicitation going here in New York State, and we hope to be bidding into that. Of course, we are exploring projects on other coasts as well. On the West Coast, we're actually part of a joint venture project. It's a proposed floating offshore wind project. It's called Castle Wind. And here's a little bit more information about it. But what's really unique out there, and I should first say that we don't currently hold a federal lease in California. No one does. But we have actually already secured MOUs for community benefits agreements out there, which is pretty outstanding and something we're very proud of. We actually have agreements with the town of Morro Bay, which is where potentially this project would interconnect, as well as with some local fishing communities and organizations out there. And you know, that's really important because this is what we're seeing on the East Coast as well. And sometimes these are some of the hiccups and the hurdles that companies have to go through in order to bring these projects online. So, you know, this has been a multi-year stakeholder investment out on the West Coast, and we're committed to doing that here on the East Coast as well and in New York State. And we're bringing some of those lessons from over there to New York to make sure that we're communicating openly and transparently with folks on the ground and coming to agreements that are good for everyone. But turning to the New York Bight and New York State specifically, as I've already said, we are very focused on this region. And we like to talk as ourselves as a smart follower, if you will. You know, we're working on the good work that Julia and Equinor and other companies are doing before us and laying some of that groundwork, and then we're hoping to build off of it. We are anticipating the federal lease auction, hopefully this year, from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. And you know, that's really important, not only for us to get that lease so that we can then bid into New York, but it's actually very important for New York State, for local citizens, leaders, because it makes auctions more competitive. And it also will ensure that we have that pipeline of development to ensure that folks working in the industry have long-term jobs, well-paying jobs. So we kind of see ourselves as the next wave of development, and we're really looking forward to being a part of that. In terms of federal leases, just a quick note here, you know, we do have a new administration, and we think this is really positive for the offshore wind industry. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they have great goals, and we do feel that they're very committed. And so we do see a really positive and more engaged partner from the White House and Interior and BOEM to help the offshore wind industry really succeed and bring to fruition all of the economic benefits that come with this industry. And just to kind of give you an overview of some of these benefits, I know that Julia and Adrienne referenced them, but this is kind of a bit more of a holistic picture. Last summer, Wood Mackenzie released some research that showed what would job growth, what would local investment mean for the New York Bight, New Jersey area, New York and New Jersey area, if all anticipated federal leases were executed and we work towards state goals. And it's pretty incredible if you look at the numbers. I mean, we're looking at tens of thousands of new jobs supported every year, as well as billions of dollars of local investment. And so we really want to be a part of that. And we're committed to making that happen because it won't come on its own. Companies like Equinor has already shown, you know, you have to make these investments and really commit to it. And so we're also committed to doing that. And to that end, even though it is early days, Some of the areas that we're focused on are the supply chain, helping local businesses, first of all, understand what the opportunity is. You know, just having conversations. What are the different components that are out there? What are the different types of businesses that could get involved? And where do they go? How do they sign up? So we actually have our own supply chain registry. It's listed there if anyone's interested to check it out or register. And we're also making early investments such as offshorewindsupplychain.org. That link doesn't work quite yet. It's a new endeavor that's going online in the next couple of months, but it's a local New York initiative out in Long Island to support some of the new projects coming on. And it'll be a one-stop shop for information for local businesses to understand what the industry is about, how they can get involved. And there will be some cool interactive features. I believe NYSERDA is supporting some of this initiative as well. Of course, workforce development. We're looking at it from an education angle, working with universities, K through 12, identifying pathways to success, making sure young folks, as well as folks who are going to be transitioning from other industries, know where they can get involved and how they can be a part of this new industry, certification and training, apprenticeships, things like that. Of course, infrastructure, that's been talked about a lot as well. You know, we don't have any big news like Julia does yet, but we hope to in the future. And we are looking at port development, improving the grid, making sure that resiliency is incorporated into all of our development as well. And then, of course, it's very important, and I know this is a goal for New York State, but we want to make sure that this industry and our organization and all of our projects are inclusive and diverse. So we're also looking at supporting MWBEs and other local diverse initiatives that really get everyone involved and really ensure everyone understands the opportunity and can succeed and share our success. And, you know, in these early days, it really is about meeting with local leaders, local communities, not only sharing who we are, but also hearing from them. So we've been very active on the ground. We've had hundreds of connections with different leaders. We're meeting with everyone from federal, state, local leadership, conservation organizations, labor organizations. Again, education, we're exploring partnerships and research opportunities with universities, K through 12 institutions, related opportunities. And then it's also really important, we agree with what's been said before us by some of my co-presenters, that the fishing and the mariner industry, they're very important. And we know that they have certain concerns, so we're dedicated to speaking with them and really working together to make sure that they're heard and that their insights are taken into account as we build these projects. And to that end, even though we don't have a project in New York State, we've actually had a dedicated fisheries liaison for over 1 year now. She helps us connect with all of these different fishing stakeholders, as well as follow through on our communications objectives. We also, kind of interestingly, put out a survey at the end of last year. We sent it out to over 1,000 folks in the New York Bight area and along the East Coast. And we've received significant feedback from New York and New Jersey fishing communities, mainly commercial fishing men. And we're taking all of their input and insights and, you know, really internalizing it, and we will incorporate it into our project development going forward. And I'll just end it here, but, you know, as I've already said, we are listening and we do want to work together with local stakeholders, local communities. I encourage everyone who's on the line today, if you have any questions afterwards, please reach out to me. We're here as a resource, not only for the company itself, but for the industry. We have great lessons and learnings from abroad that we're happy to talk about as well. So thank you so much, everyone.
Jamie, thank you so much. Great to have you. And we're getting some questions, and some of them were answered already in the chat, but we're getting like engineering questions. So hopefully,
Unfortunately, I'm just the community engagement. Yeah. I can try as hard as I can. I might whisper to Adrian.
Yeah, if we can see if the other panelists can be brought up on screen again, we can, you know, maybe have everybody address. How large the transmission cable, rigid, flexible, just one, multiple, buried, or on the ocean floor? So multiple questions there. I don't know who wants to jump in and address that. Go ahead, Julia.
Why not? I can speak for Equinor's projects. we have two different types of transmission cables. We have AC and DC. Brooklyn is planned for AC, and that would be to supply the 800 megawatts we want to bring into Brooklyn. That's 2 AC cables. They are buried 4 to 6 feet beneath the seabed. So that prevents interference from, if a ship's dragging an anchor or a fisherman's dragging a net or other fishing gear. And then when they come onto shore, we have in Brooklyn, there's a bulkhead, but if we're going under a beach, we will horizontally, directionally drill starting even a quarter mile from shore and come in about 50 feet under the beach. So there's no danger that there'd be erosion that would expose the cable. So they are, they are insulated inside vaults once they get to shore, and then they're buried under the street. So all of this is under the seabed and underground.
Great, thank you. And the other question I'm getting through the Q&A is, how will the project participate with New York ISO or the PJM markets?
Good question. Adrian can interrupt me at any time. So New York, the states that have offshore wind programs are all doing it differently. But in New York, when we win a contract with New York, we win an OREC, which is the Offshore Wind Renewable Energy Credit. So we bid our power into the market, into the New York ISO, just like any other electric generator. And then, depending on the price of the power, we get some true up between the market price and the price that we bid into the NYSERDA competition. So other states do differently, but this is a way that New York has devised to make sure that those competitive markets stay competitive markets, and but renewables still start to come online.
And Adrian, I don't know if you're still there. If you wanted to come on screen, we were going to just try to get a screenshot of all the panelists, but we'll see if Adrian comes back on. In the meantime, Julie, I just wanted to answer your question. My accent's from Maine. I got your email. I just saw it. So you usually have to know me for about 5 minutes before I'm telling you I'm from Maine. So I want to thank you both and thank all our panelists. Jamie, what you were saying about the community first approach to doing it is such a different approach to what we would have seen maybe 10 years ago, right? From a lot, like, I think I'm glad to see both companies doing this type of approach, right? Talking to people in the lead up, and because I can tell a lot of people on this call, on this meeting will tell you that Brooklyn communities who don't feel engaged can be a thorn in the side of someone trying to do work in the community. We can definitely, they can get their haunches up if they don't feel like they've been approached and engaged in the process, and I think that makes sense. So really glad to see that approach from everybody. I'm going to see if there's any more questions. I am getting a request for slides. Do any of you have any objection to sharing the slides, or?
No, please do.
Okay.
Right.
I'll share those out to the list of people who have requested them, or to everybody who's on the list, really. And yeah, I think I don't see any more questions coming in. I'm sorry, Evan?
That looks like all, actually.
Yep.
As far as questions.
So I'm going to go ahead and let the anyone who wants to make a little announcement make an announcement. I'm going to, but I want to thank the panelists so much for joining us today. I really wanted to reiterate something that Adrian started with. It was one of the first comments she made, was that a 2040 goal in terms of infrastructure is like tomorrow. Right. So I think that these type of conversations are really important to be having now. And, yesterday may have been the perfect time, but today is the next best time to have these conversations. So thank you for that, Adrian. And Adrian, can we get Adrian up on the screen so we can get a quick screenshot? I don't know if David's doing that. There we go.
Okay, 1 second.
Thank you so much. That's nice. If anybody else has, I know just from firsthand experience, we are doing a project with NYSERDA for the clean heating and cooling And so I know we have a couple people who are doing the actual work on the ground for our office through the grant, who are going to want to talk a little bit about the program. So I'm going to open it up to them. Thank you all again for presenting for us today. It was very informative, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of follow-up with you in the coming weeks and months and years, it looks like, with the size of these projects. So thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead. I don't know if Chaim, do you want to say a few words? I'll unmute you.
Sure. Sure, I'm happy to say a few words, and thanks for the really informative presentations, really industrial scale stuff. At the other end of the wire is the plugs and the power that we all use, and Heat Cool Smart Brooklyn, which is sponsored by Brooklyn Borough President and funded by NYSERDA, is a community campaign to electrify heating and retrofit buildings for energy efficiency in community boards 2 and 6. And this is the sort of on the ground project to take all this wonderful clean energy from the grid and put it to use in very efficient, we hope and pray, buildings in New York City, and eliminate the fossil fuel burning in everybody's basement. Get rid of the oil and gas boilers that are making heat. Use efficient air source heat pumps in this case to heat the buildings, but also cool them efficiently and make the buildings airtight and insulated so that we don't waste energy in any respect. But the whole plan is to get fossil fuels out of the energy business, and we all have to do our part. So if you want to get in touch with Heat Cool Smart Brooklyn, go to our website at heybrooklyn.org. That's HEY Brooklyn, one word, .org. Excuse me, yeah. We are going to be doing a webinar next Tuesday evening, and you can sign up for the webinar, which will be about Brooklyn small businesses, called Ready for the Green Recovery, which we hope will start very soon. And we'll be talking about doing these retrofits using the Con Ed Clean Heat program and working with our very good contractors and our community partners. We're also doing workforce training to train people for these new technologies for electric heating and cooling and green retrofits. So go to the website, heybrooklyn.org, and you can look up that information and maybe join us for one of our online classes sometime soon. And we again thank the Brooklyn Borough President's Office, Jeff Lowell and Evan Burr, and the Borough President himself, whose name I cannot mention because I think he's busy doing something else at the time.
We can say his name.
Well, oh, I can? Well, maybe you can. Okay.
Good that you're observing the rules, though, Chaim. Good.
I appreciate it.
I'm trying not to step out of line. You know, my swim lane is not offshore wind, but
if you put that information, the website information and the webinar information in the chat, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay. Thanks, Chaim.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Julie Liu, did you want to say anything? I know Julie does the same thing, but with in another region of Brooklyn. I don't know if she's. Let's see. And if anybody else wants to say anything, just go ahead and raise your hand. Any announcements you want to make while you've got a captive audience, virtually captive audience anyway. Yeah, one of the things we miss about the ReSET meetings usually have been breakfast meetings, and we bring in food and coffee, and so we missed that this time, but happy to be happy to get those going again, and hopefully in the not too distant future. And I see somebody put it in the comment in the chat that they're getting an air source heat pump installed in April, and looking forward to it. So glad to hear that.
Good stuff.
It's a great program. It's now happening all over the state. There are multiple grantees helping to put in air source heat pumps or even ground source heat pumps in other regions of the state. So just a great grant program from NYSERDA. We're very happy to be a part of. I guess with that, I don't see any more questions or any hands raised to make any announcements. So thank you all so much for presenting. Thank you all for attending. And with that, wish you a great day and hope to see you again all soon. Take care.
See you at the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
again.
so much. Take
Thank
care, everyone.
Thank you.